There we are. Welcome back, everybody. It is the bottom of the hour and time for another wonderful speaker full of inspiration and insights for you, the families that we are hoping to serve and support in many, many areas of life. Go ahead, babe.
I now have the pleasure of officially introducing Vera Thomas. Vera is an ICF Certified Life Coach, international speaker, trainer, mediator, and poet. 24 times best-selling author, producer of 2 weekly podcast and radio shows, The Vera Thomas Show, and her career spans across 40 years working with individuals, companies, nonprofit organizations, schools, and churches engaging youth and adults. Welcome, Vera. It is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is.
Let me
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Nope.
You were getting ready to say something?
Oh, I was just going to ask you the first question, but you had something that was just burning to get out. So just go
No,
for
go ahead. No, go ahead. Ask me the question.
it. Okay. Well, the question is kind of our standard question. Why this passion? What was it about something that happened in your life, in your childhood, and raising your own children that created this need, this want to get out here and share with families about how to help children be the best that they
See
can
your
be?
windows, see your life, which
Yes.
is your talk title. What is the passion between see your windows, see your life?
Well, growing up, I had no confidence, no self-esteem. I was bullied, ridiculed, made fun of, told things like you're stupid, you're dumb, you're fat, you're ugly, you're nothing. Had adults tell me, you're nothing, you'll never be anything. And it wasn't and my mother, she would always try to encourage me. She died at the age of 43, but she would always try to encourage me and always say, well, Vera, make them out of a lie. And one of the pivotal things that helped me was Eleanor Roosevelt's quote that says, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. And when I understood that, then I also understood that I did not have to believe what other people said about me. And I don't want any child to ever feel like I felt as a child. I want parents to recognize and understand how important their words are to their children. And that's why I do what I do.
And that's so impactful and powerful right then and there, right? When we are looking out for the best interests of our kiddos. For me, it was along those same lines, right? As a teacher, knowing when I couldn't reach a student or knowing when there was something I couldn't do to help a student in that system. And me being a student that at first was not successful at school, right? It's like, I don't want any other child to feel this way either. So it is strong motivation. And I really want to give kudos to you for talking about it, for the people in the audience who are here to listen and learn and share their messages of inspiration and support and hope for families as well. So thank you for all of that.
Thank
What do
you.
you mean by see your windows, see your life? What is that alluding to?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I want the audience to imagine a room with your eyes open or closed. Imagine a room, and I want you to imagine the windows in that room. If you can see the windows in that room, put it in the chat that you can. But give me a one. If you can see the windows that you are imagining in a room, let me see in the chat that you can. Okay. If you can see your windows, you can see your life. See the windows in any room with eyes open wide or shut tight. See the quality of your living by what you do or say. Do you see happiness or gloom in the life you live today? Are the clouds of despair the only thing you see? Do you wonder, who cares to come and rescue me? If you can see your windows, you can see your life. You can change clouds to sunshine by doing what you feel is right. See the rainbows in your life, fleeting moments in your day. See the beauty you can find in what you do or say. We are what we think about every day. We live by faith, fear, or doubt, believing life is but one way. We can think ourselves into happiness, misery, or pain by seeing what we stand to lose or seeing what we stand to gain. If you can see your windows, you can see your life. Awareness is the key. You have the control. You can see your life bright. And when we talk about those windows, the window from looking from the outside, that's all the negative, toxic things that we hear people saying about us or the behaviors towards us. That's on the outside. On the inside, that's us. How do we see ourselves? How do we want to see ourselves? And in this particular case, how do we see ourselves as parents? How do we want to see ourselves as parents? And what is that gap in between? That's what I mean by see your windows, see your life.
Love that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. The poem that you went into, right? It just like brought so many vivid pictures in there. That is awesome. Yeah. So that gap, right? Because oftentimes we as parents, like, I'm failing my child. I don't know what to do next. What's next? I'm not quite sure the next step to take. But at the same time, if you look back on your past, were those things kind of there in your past as well? Are you trying to like solve something from your past, from you growing up for your child as well? What can we look at and really zero in on to make that difference for the next generation?
The first thing I want to say is that 60% of adults who have unresolved issues, those issues stem from their childhood. And if those issues are unresolved in them, then it's going to spill over in how they are parenting their children. And being able to look at the different parental styles. You know, I grew up in a very authoritarian environment where it was do as I say, you know, because I said so, you know, and with that kind of attitude towards your children are going to become very reticent. They're not going to want to come to you and talk to you because you don't know how the response is going to be, you know, and so I did not want to be that type of parent. And so the other thing, going from that to becoming a permissive parent, where you want to be your child's best friend, that doesn't work either, because then you're not setting boundaries. And if you are setting boundaries, in many cases, as a permissive parent, they're inconsistent because you want to make sure that you're not doing anything to upset your child. And so going from one extreme to the other, or being a neglectful parent where you're so concerned and consumed with your own life, your work, and your aspirations that your kids are just kind of fending for themselves. All three of those behaviors can cause antisocial behaviors, can cause lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, can cause them to look for love in other places and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And it can create some major problems. And so being an authoritative type parent where you are setting boundaries that are non-negotiable and guidelines that are flexible, being able to have your children come to you and feel confident about talking to you about whatever, anything, though that is what needs to happen. And if a parent has not experienced those things as a parent, then learning those things, not beating themselves up because they didn't know those things, because when we know better, we do better. And awareness precedes change. And so I don't want any parent to hear me and say, oh, well, I didn't do that. I'm not that way. It's okay because you can get better, and parents Parents, there are some very good parents out there. There are some well-intentioned parents out there. There are some parents that just don't know. And that's where we come in to help look at, well, what are you doing well? Let's talk about what you're doing well, and what areas need to be improved and looking at that gap in between.
Yeah, that's also really important for personalities like mine as well. So my personality type is very chameleon-like. Very introverted. I'm an INFJ in the MBTI. I'm also probably a gold green from the color that
Stanley was
that
talking
Stanley
about.
was talking about. And so there is this sense that I get my identity from how people are reacting to me. And because with outside of that, it's like, so when people would like belittle me or stuff, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Some people can get through that. It's like, oh no, that's not me. But or the way they treat you. So in those personalities, it's like the involvement of the parent is incredibly beneficial, because another way to somebody put it is, you can't what if you're inside your jar, you can't read your label. It takes somebody outside to be able to read your label and to be able to help you. So if you're not getting that at school from your friend group, which I didn't, then you really, really need your parents to step up and read your label to you, show you your strengths, show you what you're made of, and then show you that you're actually really good.
Yes. And also understanding, if we can all understand that we have no control over how other people relate, react, or respond, we don't have any control over that. We don't have any control over how people relate and respond to us. However, we do have control over how we relate, react, and respond. And when we can understand, just because someone said that, now as a child, you keep hearing those things over and over again, it's going to impact on you without question or doubt. It's going to impact on you. And so having the reserve and the confidence and the self-esteem to understand and know who you are. When a child understands the power within them, when a parent understands the power that's within them, we would have less domestic violence, because we get away from that, because we know we don't have to allow people to do that to us. And having experienced being in a I was a battered wife, and all the confidence and self-esteem and all that stuff that it took me years to acquire. Within 3 years, it was gone, because I allowed myself to stay subjected to mental, physical, emotional, and verbal abuse in my marriage. But when I was attacked by my ex-husband in front of my 3-month-old son, I knew then, I am not raising a child like this. I am not raising a child in this environment. And so many times people stay in those situations and they say, I'm doing it for the kids. No, you're not. You're hurting your child if you stay in those situations. And so I left when my son was 6 months old. And the kicker is, I not only had to work on myself, I had a child. And I had to instill in him what I was trying to instill back into myself. And so the affirmations, the speaking positive, doing everything in my power to build myself back up, to get back to where I knew I could be. But I had to do it for my son as well. And so parents, as we're working on ourselves, we're working on ourselves to help our kids be better than we might have been.
One of the things that I sometimes talk about, especially along these lines, how do we help kids be resilient through those kinds of situations, right? Resilient through divorce, resilient through, abuse, resilience through grandma and grandpa passing away, all those things that really impact the kids. And one of the things that I talk about is what you were just kind of alluding to, is that when you work on yourself as a parent, you need to make sure you tell your child kind of what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean tell them all the horrible stuff, right?
Right.
But when you are having that tough day, tell them, I'm having a tough day because I'm dealing with some emotions inside of me. It's not you, it's not your fault. I love you. And you might see me cry today, or I might goof up and I might yell today. But please know I'm working on me to get better so I can also help you get better. And when
And
those conversations happen, then the
yes.
child isn't thinking it's them, blaming themselves, or following in that bad path. What kinds of things did you do with yourself and your son to kind of help guide yourself as you did that?
I used a lot of affirmations. From the time my son was a toddler, I had an affirmation on my bathroom mirror that said, I am talented, intelligent, and creative. And I had my son say that from the time he was able to talk. And let me say this, when you affirm your kids and you have them affirm themselves, other people will see it. An example, when my son was in middle school, he sang I Believe I Could Fly at the school assembly, right? And afterwards, parents and teachers came up to me, and you know what they said? They said, Miss Thomas, your son, he's so talented, he's so intelligent, he's so creative. The very thing I was teaching him to say about himself, other people saw it as well. And so affirmations are so important, especially at an early age. Telling your kids that they're whatever it is you want them to be, however it is you want them to be, claim it as though it already exists. I am confident. I am smart. I am loving. I am kind. I'm working with a family right now, and I'm having all of them do that because the mother is suffering from self-esteem issues. And so I'm having her, the very first meeting, I had everybody in the house write down affirmations. And then I had them speak them out loud to me and said to them, you need to do this every single day. And you need to have your children do this every single day. And do it every single day. And they're doing it. And there were some other nuggets and things that I gave them, and they're within less than 5 days, I'm seeing change. They are seeing change, and so that was one of the things I did. The other thing, it was very important for me to teach my son responsibility and also to accept consequences for his actions or his behaviors, whether good or bad, you know, whatever. I needed him to understand that we cannot blame other people because of things that we did, and right now in our country, we got grown folks, adults blaming everybody else for the situation when they're the reason for the situation.
That's
And
true.
so I had to teach my son to be responsible and to accept responsibility for his actions and his behaviors. And that's something that needs to be taught at an early age, giving them responsibilities. Like I said, my son was tall for his age. And
Yeah.
at 4 years old, he looked like he was 6. And so I taught him to vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go around and pick up the bigger, things that would clog
Yeah.
the vacuum. And then I
Yep.
would show him how to vacuum. And he vacuumed. So that was one of his chores. And he felt proud about doing it. In
Mm-hmm.
middle school, he did not like how I washed his clothes. And it's because I wasn't turning his jeans inside out, right? And so I was like, okay, wash your clothes yourself. So in middle
But
school,
did you just tell him to go do it, or did you show
no,
him how?
no, no. I said, okay, you don't like how I'm washing your clothes. Come on.
Exactly.
And so you take the dark clothes, I showed him how to separate the darks
Yeah.
from the lights from the whites, and and he does his own laundry. He was doing his own laundry. He started cooking at 9 years old in the kitchen with me. So by the time he was 12, I was in school and I was working a full-time job. And there were times when I would come home and dinner would be done because he knew how to do it.
Yep.
So by teaching your children responsibilities, you're freeing yourself up. You
So
know?
something important in that I would like to think to say is in that your children are going to make mistakes. In
Yes.
order to think, you have to be able to speak. And so sometimes you have to speak stuff to hear how it sounds, because how many times have you just like, wow, you say something and then it falls flat. It's like, well, that sounded a lot better in my head. So
Right.
you have, or it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, and it hurts, or it fails miserably, or it's insulting to somebody. It's like you have to separate that action from who they are, because
Absolutely.
that mistake is so important to their learning. So so if
Absolutely.
they make that mistake, then don't make them bad for it. It's like, yeah, make it a learning opportunity. That action
Absolutely.
might not have been appropriate, but I love the way you're learning not to do that again.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of the things, like, don't attack the person, attack the behavior.
Mhm.
And so many people want to start belittling because something happened. And with my son, for example, when he did something that was just like really something
Out
he
of
shouldn't have
character.
done and out of character, I would never called him Stu. I never called him out of his name. Never. Because I know how that feels to be called out of your name. So I never called him out of his name. Now I did say that was a stupid thing you did. And then I would ask him, what made you do that? Tell me, what were you thinking when you did that? And have some dialogue and conversation to help him process that behavior, and then look at, okay, how could we have done this better? How could we have done this differently? That's where the communication comes in when talking with your children. Questioning them, ask them questions. What made you do that?
I don't know.
Well, let's look
Let's
a little deeper.
Yeah, let's look a little deeper. I
I
know you
wasn't thinking.
know.
I just did it. It
Okay,
seemed
you
like a
were
good
okay. So
thing. It
what
was
could you have done better? How could you have done this differently?
There you go.
right. I could have paused a moment.
Okay. And I that works with kids. It does. I remember working with this little 7-year old, and she had had a bad day at school, and so we were talking, and she was telling me what was going on, and she did something I can't remember the whole scenario because it was a few years ago. But in talking with her, I was like, "So how did you feel when that happened?" And she told me. I said, so how could that have been different? What could we have done differently? And she said, well, I could have, done this or that. I said, do you think that would have made a difference? And she said, yeah, that probably would. I said, do you think you might feel better as a result of doing it that way? And so being able to talk to your kids and help them, critical thinking is so important. And you don't just critically think. You have to teach your children how to critically think. And you do that by questioning and processing what's going on.
That used to be taught in schools. I think they actively don't on purpose anymore.
That may well be because they want people to think accordingly to they want people to think a certain way instead of having their own thoughts and feelings and ideas.
They want
That's
people
why
to pass the
debate is
test,
very
and
important.
they want people to pass the test.
Oh my God.
Right.
Vera, thank you for bringing us through your window and helping us see the way parents can interact and work with parent and
And thank you for
kiddos.
starting off with poetry. That was
Yeah, it's
absolutely
gorgeous.
beautiful as well.
Thank
Can you
you.
tell us about your free gift and your VIP gift that is available for our wonderful audience and the parents who are listening?
The free gift is an ebook on how to raise upstanding children to avoid them being a bully. That's the free gift.
Awesome.
And the VIP gift, I'm offering a 5-day one-on-one parent challenge where I will work with you for 5 days on a particular area that you want to focus on with the intent of you seeing the change within those 5 days. And then we take it from there.
So that
Beautiful.
is an amazing offer for the $47 prices of our VIP ticket. That's $10 a day for this amazing woman's time to see actual changes in your family in 5 days. So it's like, if you have any desire at all for anything like that, it's like, sign up for VIP now, because I mean, that's just an unbelievable offer. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. And I could honestly say I've been doing these 5 day challenges with families and I am seeing results. I mean, I am seeing results. I'm looking at whatever the parent will tell me what they want to work on instead of me telling them.
Right.
And once they tell me, then we look at a strategic plan for implementing change.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Vera, for your wisdom,
Thank
for being here.
you.
Thank you for supporting our families and our communities. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. And audience, show Vera some love in the chat or get some wavy jabs hands out there. Let her see everything. Thank you so very, very much. And we will be back in just a couple minutes with our next speaker, Mr. John Kennedy. All right. Take your quick break. We'll be right back.